For the most part, Super Smash Bros. 4 is widely considered to be the blandest game in the series by fans. While it was received positively at the time, Ultimate has all but replaced it nowadays. I mean, in almost every way, it's just Smash 4 but better. However, that's not to say that Smash Bros. 4 didn't have any of its own merits. After all, it had one of the strongest newcomer selections in the whole series and was the first Smash game to be playable on the go. This was especially important to me as I loved my 3DS growing up, and also was not one of the 4 people on this planet to own a Wii U. As such, the main way I got to experience Smash 4 was in its portable form, and there was actually a mode unique to this specific version of the game. While Smash Bros. For Wii U had this absolute abomination, Smash Bros. For 3DS had the GOAT, the beloved, the legendary Street Smash. Okay, I kid. Of course, I'm talking about Smash Run. This was such a unique little mode, centering around one of Smash 4's biggest gimmicks, that being its customizability. Every character in the game, with the exception of those added in the DLC, has 3 moves they can choose between for each special. While competitively, this is a bit of a mess, in casual play it's a lot of fun. You can do some stupid stuff with these custom moves, like giving Dr. Mario super fast spills and giving his side special a wind box, giving Falco Fox's lasers, or even letting Ganondorf actually use his sword. Kinda. It's pretty much just a slightly extended Warlock punch, but it's cool to see him finally using a weapon for once. Experimenting with all of these custom specials and figuring out which ones work best for you was always a good time, and, of course, these custom moves were abusable to your heart's content in Smash Run. However, that's not the only thing that this mode allows you to mess around with. Before the game begins, you're able to equip your character with stat buffs, which can be enhancements to your strength, defense, or speed. What you have to bear in mind, however, is that you don't get to have all of these stat boosts for free. Each badge you equip comes with a compromise. Attack boosting badges reduce your defense boosting badges reduce your speed, and speed boosting badges reduce your attack. This means that you have to think carefully about your configuration. Do you go for a more balanced stat distribution, or do you go all in on one stat at the cost of another? Further adding to the complexity of this decision is the fact that certain buffs may not be as strong as others, but will give you special bonuses, for example auto healing or starting with an item in hand. Others will boost your stats to a greater extent, but will come with a trade-off like starting with a damage handicap or reducing the power of thrown items. On top of these stat boosters, you can also choose from a wide range of special powers to equip your character with. There are so many options here. Some of them simply spawn an item into your hand like a hammer or a smart bomb, while others affect your character in different ways. You can have a gradual auto healer, a fixed heal, temporary super armor, or even invincibility. Then you have the special attacks, which have to be my personal favourites of the bunch. There are all sorts of abilities to choose from, like having heavenly light surrounding you which deals light damage to enemies, spawning homing missiles into target enemies, giving lightning powers to your taunts, having a ring of swords spinning around you, using a giant horizontal beam to annihilate everything on screen, and even straight up detonating on command. Each power has its own weight depending on A, how strong it is, and B, how many times you can use it, so finding an optimal loadout can be tricky. After all your preparations are made, you start the game, and from the outset it's clear that a lot of Smash Run's features were inspired by Kirby Air Ride's City Trial mode. In that game, you fly around a city for 5 minutes collecting as many power-ups as you can. Once the timer runs out, you then have to use these upgrades in some kind of competition, be it a race, a battle, a demolition derby, or something else entirely. That style of gameplay honestly feels like it was tailor-made for Smash, and as expected, it translates perfectly here. In Smash Run, you start in a big, sprawling overworld where you run around, fighting off swarms of enemies. A lot of these guys are from the Subspace Emissary, and honestly, seeing these guys again was super nostalgic. The Roturets, Glyers, and Mites might just seem like generic enemies to most, but I don't know, I always thought they'd forever be confined to Smash Bros. Brawl and would never see the light of day again, so I really appreciated them being here. You've also got minions from a wide range of Nintendo franchises too, like Goombas, Deku Scrubs, and various different Pokemon. Even the Kremling showed up to the party this time, despite their long-term absence in the Donkey Kong games at this point in time. Taking these enemies out rewards you with stat buffs, whether it's to your attack, defense, speed, specials, neutrals, or jump height. Your goal is to collect as many of these boosts as you can within the 5-minute time limit. Naturally, the bigger and stronger enemies will reward you with better buffs, so it's worth going out of your way to take them down. You're looking for things like Dark Nuts from Zelda Twilight Princess, or the strongest enemy of all, Kid Icarus Uprising Rising's Reaper. This guy often appears at random intervals as a special event and even gets his own unique theme. I usually just spam my Horizon beams and super armor when I run into one of them and reap the benefits afterwards. That was terrible, I'm sorry. Speaking of those special events though, throughout the game there are a number of random news flashes that can pop up telling you about certain limited time events. For example, more stat boosts appearing for a given amount of time, a room full of treasure chests temporarily spawning in, or hordes of enemies appearing. Scattered throughout the map, you'll also find a few doors akin to the ones from Subspace. When you enter them, you're faced with a time challenge where you have to perform a task like defeating a certain number of enemies or breaking a giant crystal. Do this successfully and you'll get to open a bunch of treasure chests, all of which contain a ton more stat boosts. Some rooms straight up don't even have a challenge and you can just waltz in and grab the chest for free. However, stat boosts aren't the only thing that these chests can contain. You can also find trophies and character customization items too, like more badges, special abilities, and even custom moves. I remember it was always super satisfying to unlock all of the different custom moves and see what kind of wacky gimmick each new one would bring to the table. Then, when the timer runs out, you move on to the final challenge. This involves you competing against 3 CPUs, who, much like you, have also collected their fair share of buffs. This may be an ordinary free-for-all, but part of what makes this mode so special is the sheer variety of challenges that might crop up here. Matches might have modifiers on them, for example, like being giant or having certain items like mushrooms appear more frequently. It's not just fights though, there's also a race to the finish type of thing where you have to run through an obstacle course as fast as you can, all while avoiding your competitors. Naturally, having a lot of speed boosts helps a lot with the races, and having a lot of power boosts is handy for the matches. Sometimes you'll even have to scale as high as you can on a vertically scrolling map, so even the jump boosts can come in clutch there. I usually end up with a pretty broad range of stat buffs anyway, so regardless of the event, the CPUs just get absolutely decimated. There was a local multiplayer mode, but there was no way to play it online, which I think could have been a blast, especially if you could play specifically with friends. Had this mode returned in Smash Bros. Ultimate, it would have added some much needed variety to the ways you can play online. It's really a shame that it was only in Smash Bros. For 3DS in my opinion. I mean, hey, at least it gives the game something to be remembered by, a reason for people to come back to it. Huh, I wonder what other version-specific Smash modes have been lost to time over the years. Maybe I could take a look at Smash Tour next? Yeah, on second thoughts, I think I'll pass on that one.